the world.
If you could have 5-10 minutes to sit down with President Trump, what would you want to say to him to try to convince him of the importance of science?
Well, I'd say science is universal. Science is true for everyone in the world. And if you are president of the United States specifically, NASA is the best brand the United States has, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration. Everywhere you go in the world, people who might not particularly like the United States respect NASA. People who like the United States love NASA. And NASA does extraordinary things. Furthermore, Mr. President, if you want to have an amazing legacy and be a huge part of history, fund the search for life on other worlds. And I'm not kidding you. So the NASA budget is going on $19 billion. The planetary science budget is less than $2 billion. The planetary science budget is 9% of the 0.4% that is NASA. With that 0.036% of the federal budget, we can look for evidence of life on Mars, evidence of life on Europa, the moon of Jupiter with twice as much seawater as the Earth. By the way, the seawater was discovered by Margie Kivelson, who is a woman scientist, BT Dubs. And continue to invest in that. Then here, in the other part of our economy, we have to address climate change. I know you have many friends and colleagues who work in the fossil fuel industry, but that's got to change. In the same way we no longer ride horses into battles, we changed to the horseless carriage and then motorized, mechanized cavalry. We have to change from fossil fuel-based electricity to renewable electricity, and this will have a couple benefits. First of all those jobs will be here in the United States. You can't outsource the erection of a wind turbine. It's got to be here. Welders, skilled craftspeople here in the United States will build that. Furthermore, we will redesign the electrical grid with electrical engineers, civil engineers who understand these problems and will enable at least 3 million new jobs in the United States, Furthermore, we will not need to have a military presence on the other side of the world to defend fossil fuel resources, if I may use the term, over there. The military can be back home, and then we can export the technology of wind and solar. It is very reasonable that in the Middle East, where the sun shines all the time, they are moving to concentrated solar power because it's free. So once the sunlight is free. So, Mr. President, I really want you to consider moving forward. Support space exploration, change the electrical grid to renewable resources for the sake of jobs, for the sake of the military, and for the sake of the environment. This would be, it's a win-win-win. And I know you have friends in the fossil fuel industry. In the same way my grandfather had to stop riding a horse and learn to drive a car, people in the fossil fuel industry are going to have to stop mining coal and learn to do new, cool things. I met a guy at Boeing who was, this year, who was a bricklayer. He was a stonemason, specifically, a stonemason. But now he ties wire bundles on aircraft. These are extraordinarily complex things, and he used the same skills he had, pattern recognition, getting shapes to fit, working quickly with his hands, having taken great pride in his work. He used those same skills to make the thing that we export like crazy, huge, expensive, marvelous airplanes.
So people can adapt.
We have to adapt. We just have to adapt, everybody. I know you, Mr. President, you've had great success in engaging people in traditional fossil fuel industries, but we've got to change, and we can do this. Don't tell me we can't do this. People solved a global crisis in World War II in 5 years. So let's do the same thing now with renewable electricity, clean water, and access to the internet for everybody in the country and then everybody in the world. We can do this. Let's go.
As you speak with such passion about this, we have one last question from Naftali, who asks, would you consider running for any political office?
I'm asked this often. Never say never. But traditionally, everybody, traditionally, we hired people to work in the government who had experience in the government. I'm 61 years old. I have not worked in government all these decades. So although you may think I'm full of these marvelous ideas or not, I really want young people to get involved in the government and take pride in it. And in my parents' day, everybody got involved in World War II. It was not, the music was about World War II, Rosie the Riveter, everything, rationing, home garden, everything was about solving this global crisis. And people believed in the U.S. government as a force for good. People didn't have, as far as I could tell growing up, didn't have this cynical view of the role of government. Now, you guys, I think it's better that way. I think this idea that government is inherently bad and it needs to be dismantled has not been thought through. I think that government is inherently good. And if you're visiting Washington this weekend, I really encourage you to go to the National Archives and go look at the U.S. Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, and the Bill of Rights, the first amendments to the U.S. Constitution. And just think about how thoughtful these guys were who wrote this thing. They were nerds, man. They wanted to construct a system of government that would have built in inherently change. Change is built in, and that is key to moving forward and making Article 1, Section 8, the progress of science, real.
All right.
Thank you for interviewing me, Caitlin.
Thank you so much.
This is big fun.
Thank you so much for being with us. Thank you so much to you guys for watching.